What's happening, people? Welcome back to the A2A podcast. On today's episode, I talk with April Monét, the founder and owner of the AM Elite PR agency, who saw her athletic career come to an end from a series of knee injuries while still in high school. We discuss how she got into PR, how she created her own company, and how she deals with being a woman in a male-dominated industry. So hopefully you enjoyed today's conversation with April, and as always, I appreciate you listening to the A2A podcast. So welcome back to the A2A podcast. Today, sitting down with April. And April, it's been really cool to follow you on social media. I think the first time that I saw any of your content was when we were actually both at Black Sports Business Symposium a year ago, and they had reposted your content. And then that's how I started to follow you and follow a lot of things that you've done. It wasn't until recently that I actually looked at your profile. I had always just seen your posts and things like that. And then once I looked at your profile and saw the link and kind of read your story, I'm like, this is a perfect story. Like, I really need to hear more about this. I really need to get her onto the podcast. So one of the first things I always love doing is allowing people to introduce themselves. So before we get into the whole thing, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Tell us a little bit about you and where you're from.
Sure. Well, as you said, my name is April Monét. And I am originally from Kansas City, Missouri, and Los Angeles, California. I was kind of raised between the two. And I am a publicist for professional athletes and entertainers. I've been doing that for, a little over 12 years now. Absolutely love it. And recently, I have also gotten into a little bit more player development and developing a program actually that can be used across all sports, not just one, and with multiple teams and things like that. So really help players develop, not just, on the field or on the court, but off, and why it's important to have, a team and great people around you.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like, and like I said, I did my research on you. I read your story. Sports have been a pretty prominent thing for you your entire life. What was it that drew you to sports and ultimately wanting to become an athlete before anything?
Sure. Well, sports kind of has ran in my family, starting from my grandfather who played. He's actually in the Hall of Fame at Long Beach Poly, played at USC with O.J. Simpson. Could have probably went on to be in the NFL Hall of Fame, but he had a career-ending knee injury when he was at USC. Then my father played professional basketball. I was a 3-sport athlete growing up, basketball, volleyball, ran track. Even rode horses professionally. So it's just always been in my blood and been something I've been very passionate about. I always had big dreams. Basketball was kind of the it sport for me. And I always had big dreams of not even necessarily going to the WNBA, but I actually wanted to play overseas. Mm-hmm. And I thought that would be really cool. And unfortunately, my junior, or more or less my senior year of high school, I experienced 2 ACL injuries, one playing volleyball and then another playing basketball. So a lot of my scholarship opportunities went away, except for a few smaller D1 schools. And so I ended up doing that and playing basketball, but then I got hurt again. So they were like, you know what? I think maybe you need to hang it up for a little while. I didn't listen. I decided, well, if I can't play basketball, let's play professional women's football. And so I ended up doing that. Well, back when I was playing, it was the Lingerie Football League. Now they've rebranded to the Extreme Football League. But I did that for a couple years, and then I actually did get hurt again doing that. So I was like, okay, I think maybe we need to do something else. But yeah, that's, sports has always been a big part of my life. So I knew that I always wanted to stay in that field and have it remain a part of my career. Even in college, I was originally taking classes to be an orthopedic surgeon because I loved medicine and loved everything about it, but I still wanted to incorporate sports. And here I had been through these knee injuries, so who knows it better than me, going in. Then you get there and it's like, oh yeah, you got to go to school for like 12 years. And even then you're going to be a doctor. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not trying to be 40 when I get done with school. So what else can I do? But anyway, I guess how I got into public relations from there is I had wanted to be kind of like the Black Erin Andrews, right? Like I wanted to be on the sidelines, whether it was on a basketball court or on a football field, no matter the sport, I just kind of wanted to be involved in the action. So I did journalism and communications. However, as a backup, I was still doing nursing. So I did both. And when I got out of school, I was dating a professional football player at the time, and he had a publicist that was doing absolutely nothing for him except collecting a check every month. And I was like, yo, I'm not understanding. Like, you are, a really good player. You've got this going on. You've got that going on. Like, what's happening here? And growing up, having the entertainment industry, everything from LA, kind of also in my family and in my blood, like I was doing acting and some of that on the side as well. And at the time I had gotten casted into a movie. And the publicist for the movie kind of took me under her wing, and she was like, because I was just real interested in everything she was doing for us, like the features and, the different collaboration, things like that. And I was like, I'm really interested in your business and how this operates. And so she was kind of like, well, come intern with me, learn the business. I think you would be really good at it. You have the relationships and you're, into sports, this and that. So I did. That turned into me working with her for like 5-6 years, and then branching out to start my own company. And, I've been going on my own ever since 2016 now. So I'm very blessed in that department. I've never really had to go out and advertise or, like beg for clients. It's kind of just always happened. And so I really thank the Lord for that. And faith has been a big part of being behind me and my success. So, that's where we are today.
So within your career, you said that faith has been a huge factor for you, in a huge driving factor, and it's been behind you the whole time. But what was that first project or maybe client or something like that really sparked your interest and let you know that you were on the right path?
So I had a client, one of my first clients, and since he's no longer my client, I'm not going to use his name out of respect, but he was a very prominent wide receiver in the league. Didn't have a very good reputation for being in media or being too egotistical, this type, whatever the case may be. And we had many conversations. And just me being an athlete myself, I guess I kind of understood some of his logic as far as why he did the things that he did and what his justification was for his actions in certain situations. So I would just talk through that with him, knowing how an athlete feels, but knowing what the public wants to see, or knowing what, to protect him and his brand, what we need to be sharing. So talking through that, and I would notice a change in him. You'd notice a change in his attitude, a change in his spirit. And, a lot of times we even prayed together on the phone. If he was really, really struggling, and to see him evolve into the kind of person that he is, and even just like minor changes, he did all of that on his own. But I was like, this is what I want to kind of help to, like, I wanted to be there to be able to kind of talk them through these rough times, and just kind of maybe be that extra little voice of reason, to help somebody like understand something, or to help, to help them get through a difficult moment that's going on in their career or their life.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're more than a publicist, right? You're not just, hey, this is what we need to do here, this is what we need to do there. You said that you had, somebody that you had dated previously where their publicist was just collecting a check. Is that what really resonated with you to say, I'm not going to be the same type of person?
I think so, because I would notice that wasn't just an isolated experience to what he was going through. That was happening all across the league and all different types of sports and all different types of entertainment. Publicists were charging these astronomical fees and not in turn providing, any type of ROI to the clients that really equated to that, value that they're charging.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I don't understand. Like, I'm in this business to try to help. I can't play anymore, but I'm talented at maybe helping you build your brand or helping you, develop something that could set you up for success when you're done playing or off the field. But yet I know how to tie the two together because I have the same passion for the sports you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what kind of set me apart. And I was like, I, really want to be genuine about this versus, oh, well, you're a professional athlete, or, oh, you're a celebrity, or, oh, you're this type of influencer. You've got this type of budget. Let me just take advantage of the situation, which is what I feel like is happening a lot and what was happening when I got into the business.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's kind of what sets me apart. And yeah, I do end up, a lot of my clients, like, you're not just my client, you become a friend, you become a part of my family. Like, I am not going to treat you, oh, I'm just writing a press release for you, or I'm just doing this for you. Like, if you're a really good publicist, you got to look at the big picture and a whole anyway. So, why not?
Mm-hmm. So one thing that, I've talked to, a couple of friends about is just being a Black woman in sports. It's not always easy, right? You have to fight a lot of barriers. You have a lot of hurdles to jump through. What are some of those experiences that you had to go through earlier on in your career to become as established as you are now?
Wow. So yeah, it's definitely hard enough being a woman in a male dominated industry.
Mm-hmm.
Factor in, yes, being a Black woman or any type of woman of color or of different ethnicity, it's 10 times harder. People don't want to take you seriously. People want to think that you're in it for the wrong reasons, which some people are. So I can't, fault anyone for having that in the back of their mind, but it still makes it an extra hurdle for those of us who aren't to have to go over. Or, being a woman who is attractive, you might get hit on.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta worry about that. And I think for me, I have tried to make it very known that that's not what I'm here for. Like, if I'm in your office and we're talking, or if I'm, you're one of my clients and we're talking about business. I am trying to get you to the next level business wise. We're not talking about anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what it is. And if you are a client or you are somebody that has a problem with that, and it's like, well, that's not what you had in mind, or you have another agenda, we don't need to work together. I don't need clients like that. I don't need to work with people like that. Or I can, know where to draw the boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I will say. I will not just work with you just to work with you. I won't just take on business just to take on business. It has to be right. Everything has to align. Like you said, it's hard enough being a woman of color in this industry. So I think it's been a challenge just trying to maintain that, that standard of, I'm just as educated as you. I am just as smart as you. I am just as talented as you. And I can do this without the extra drama around it.
Mm-hmm. So you honestly have to have an extra backbone, right? Like, you're not just, you're walking in these rooms to be taken seriously. What was that first room that you walked into where your presence was felt? They knew who you were. People were approaching you with business, and you were there because of who you are and what you've built. What was that feeling like? And what would you say that first room was where you really stepped foot in and you said, this is who I am?
So I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I've had that feeling until recently, like a couple of years ago, probably the Super Bowl in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was in LA. And I hosted an event. My company did an event. We did hosted a gifting suite on the rooftop of Madame Tussauds, the Wax Museum, right on Hollywood Boulevard, overlooked everything. And the people who RSVP'd and the people who came, and it was just, they came because they knew who I was, they knew the brand, and they knew they knew what they were getting. I guess they knew the type of experience they were gonna have, and they had it. And I think that really, like, I'll be honest with you, after that event, I went home and cried. Probably, like, not from being sad, but just like being overwhelmed of all of the people who came and showed up for me. Because you're constantly in this business, in this industry, you're showing up for people, right? Like, they've got you there because they need you. So it's kind of like when you need somebody, or when you need people to show up, like, who's gonna show up for me, because I'm just the one showing up for everybody else. But people showed up, and it was an amazing experience. And I was like, okay. And then from then on, just some of the emails and the calls and the connections that I made from that, it just kept growing and growing and growing, and I was just very proud. But it's taken so many years, because that wasn't my first event, or my first time doing something, but it just kind of like all was coming to a head, I guess. And it just keeps going. So now I'm hoping that it just keeps exploding.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's certainly a way of solidifying your presence, is having an event like that at a Super Bowl, one as big as the one that was in LA. That's a really big deal. And obviously being able to put things together that end up going well is always amazing. But the other end of the coin is crisis management, and that's something that a lot of people have to deal with, whether you're the athlete, the publicist, the journalist, no matter what. When you're part of the group surrounding the athlete, crisis management is a big deal. How have you handled, kind of a crisis, and what did you take from that now kind of propels you forward going into these other projects and working with these other clients?
Yeah, so there have been definitely in my line of work a lot of crises that have been handled, whether it be from a client or a business. And when you're a publicist, for each client, you kind of have to have that in the back of your mind, right? Like, if something goes wrong, what's our plan of action here? We have to be proactive. We have to make sure that everyone's getting out of the situation with as little negativity as possible, and as little blowback as possible. So, there have been a few instances where, I've had to be on the phone with police departments, and I've had to be on the phone with mistresses, or I've had to be on the phone with family members who are just going out of their mind, or whatever the case may be. Or, my client has gotten a little intoxicated and someone has a video or someone has a picture. And I have to try to figure out, okay, how are we going to handle this? How are we going to get through it? I'm not going to tell you exactly my process on that, because that's why people need to hire me for my services. But, it's just, I think in handling those, they've taught me how to handle the next one. I've learned something from each one that I've handled, as far as what I should do differently the next time something like this happens, or what went really well. And that's the kind of the protocol, that the standard that we need to set for something like this, for a situation moving forward. So I think that's like the biggest thing that I take from him, is all the lessons learned and just how to handle future situations.
So with having family members who are athletes, right? And I have a family member who is a professional athlete as well. And, it can cast a big shadow, or it can be something that propels you. How have you handled coming from a prominent family that were such huge athletes? Did you feel like you had pressure to succeed, or was it one of those things where you were just like, you know what, I'm expected to do this and I'm going to rise to the occasion?
So definitely felt the pressure. Definitely felt the pressure. I wanted to be the D1 athlete that, I'm the oldest of 8 siblings. And I had a bar to set, right? So I wanted to be that D1 athlete that went pro and did better than my father, right? Did better than my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
And I think going through the knee injuries that I went through, man, that was a rough time in my life as well, just mentally dealing with that. When you have a goal, you have a dream set, and then it kind of gets taken away from you involuntarily. That's not a good space to be in. So I think that, and feeling the pressure to do all that and going through those injuries, and where it's like, okay, well, obviously it's not going to happen now. That was rough to deal with, but I love the history that comes from my family and my family members, and who they are and what they're involved in. I also have a cousin who's a professional bodybuilder, Sean Ray. And I just, it's amazing to me, kind of like this bloodline that I come from. I'm actually getting ready to do a documentary on my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather's no longer with us, but his life is just ridiculously interesting, from sports to who he was in Long Beach. Like, it's insane. So I think my family and being involved in sports has really kind of just kept that passion in me to kind of keep it alive and keep it going somehow. So, whether I can't maybe physically do it right now, on a field or on a court, I can do it like in my business and in my career, and in honoring them and what they did accomplish and things
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah. So as somebody that has their own business and works with athletes, NIL has been huge in just everywhere. How did the announcement of NIL and the incorporation of that, how did that change for you and change your business?
Well, I was very happy about it. And I'm glad that it's around. For me and my business, it hasn't really changed much.
Mm-hmm.
Because, to be honest, if you're dealing with a client that is an NIL client, right? They're not a professional athlete yet. Your approach as a publicist is pretty much the same. You're not really doing anything different. I'm not an agent, and I'm not a manager. So it's really not, and this is something that people get confused with publicists anyway. It is not our job to go out and make a deal for you, or get a brand deal for you, or make you money in general. That's really not what our job is. Our job is just to protect what you already have going on, as far as from the public's point of view and how you're relating to the public. That's public relations. PR 101. So for me, yeah, my process with NIL clients doesn't change. Now, can I step into that kind of manager role or agent role a little bit and go out and get a deal maybe, or kind of facilitate one, because I do have a relationship from handling a press release or an event or an activation that one of my clients did with one of the brands that they're affiliated with? Yes, absolutely. I just haven't, because there's so much that's still not been decided about NIL, as far as all the rules and regulations, and it's different from state to state, and it's different for each college. Everybody has their own guidelines. I haven't really dipped my foot too far in that pool yet. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of just on the edge, like, yeah, if you come to me and I might happen to know something, or I can connect you with something, that's great. But I'm not out here really looking for those NIL clients yet. So yeah, for me and my business, it hasn't really changed anything. Now, I do want to eventually get more into that, because now we are seeing some issues come from NIL, and maybe some of these kids getting a lot of money really early. I think that's where financial literacy and education is very important. And so in bringing that in, I think that would actually go towards more of a player development. I think that needs to be more of a role in the colleges with the NIL, is helping these players really develop their brands and kind of manage the things that they have going on and things that come with those deals. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's my take on that.
Yeah. So before we get to our 5 questions portion, my one question I have for you is, what's the future hold for your company? Obviously, it's a female driven company with you sitting at the forefront of it. And there's a ton of really great Black women that are doing amazing things, and you're stepping right along with them, right? I mean, Clutch Sports, president of football, Black woman. You're seeing Maria Taylor step out of what was kind of controversial for her at ESPN to get an even bigger role. So what would you say the future holds for you and your company?
So as far as my company, I wouldn't mind my company continuing on and maybe growing into something even more than just PR. So like I said earlier, I'm developing this player development program that can be used across all sports with athletes to go in and speak to teams and just kind of, help players develop off the field, set them up for later. And I think what I see is that becoming a much bigger deal than what I even originally planned it out to be, and something that can be very, very valuable. So if it's maybe, my company is now who you go to bring in, somebody to be that player development expert, to teach these guys or girls or whoever, these pillars that they need to know around who they are right now. The program that I developed, I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but it's called Platform, Purpose, and Profit. And I think that's kind of self-explanatory as far as what we're going to talk about. But all very important things that you as a professional athlete need to know and need to be aware of. Like I said, in going back to what I think sets me apart from other publicists was the fact that I don't charge the astronomical amounts. And I do other things. I wear a little, more hats than I should as a PR agent. But, you need to understand, and teaching these people how to understand, well, how do I evaluate my publicist? How do I evaluate my team to know that what I'm getting is worth the money that I'm spending? So that's part of the program, in teaching that. So I just feel like this is going to continue to grow and become something way more valuable, way more bigger than just a public relations agency. And that's what I would like to see. If I can help these people continue to develop, that's what I'm about.
Yeah. Hopefully it does continue. And, you're the biggest PR agency in the world at some point, right? And you're representing some of the biggest athletes, probably some of the biggest athletes already, but even more of them, right? So to get into the 5 questions portion, the first question I have for you, I want to take you back to your days as an athlete. What is a game for you that you will always rest your hat on and that always brings kind of joy to you when you think of being a former athlete?
So that's actually a funny story. So when I was I'm going to take you all the way back. I had some great, great games as a high school athlete. But I'm going to take you back to 7th grade.
Okay.
7th grade, when you could first start, playing sports for the school, like competitive wise, right? We were in gym class and our gym teacher was the varsity football coach. Anyway, we were doing our track and field unit. I was a member of the track team. I was very, very good. And I was a runner though, runner and a sprinter, not, didn't do any field events. So we're learning about the shot put that day. And one of my friends, who was a softball player, goes up to throw her shot put. And I was bending over because I was next in line, getting ready to pick up my shot put. He tells her not to throw. She throws, hits me on the back of my head, knocks me out cold. The football coach thought I was dead. Anyway, I get rushed to the hospital. Okay, the cracked, basically just broke the skin, didn't crack my skull or anything, 7 staples in my head. Told my mother to take me back to the school because that night was our conference track meet and I wasn't missing it. So she did. So that night I went to the conference track meet. I ran all of my events and I won them all, and we won conference that night. The varsity football coach was just recently inducted to the Coaches Hall of Fame here. Actually, last weekend, I was able to go and see that.
Mhm.
And we still to this day talk about that story. So, yes. And the fact that I came back and still ran in all the events and still won with 7 staples in my head.
That's incredible. That is probably the best story that's ever been told on this show. And I have no idea how you would ever do that, especially as a seventh grader, right?
Right.
As an older athlete, you're like, all right, I'll suck it up. But no, as a seventh grader, that's pretty cool. You said that you've had a ton of events that you've hosted, and you talked about how that first one where people truly showed up for you. But what was the first event that you held where you were kind of nervous to hold it? What was the first one?
Oh my gosh, you're gonna take me back. Okay. The first one I did was actually a birthday party for a big casting director in Hollywood. And we had people on the guest list like Rochelle Yates and Wesley Snipes and Michael Jai White, and Jamie Foxx. And I was running everything from the event to the red carpet to PR, handling all the media, handling the details of the event. And when I tell you my stomach was just in absolute knots, like I probably didn't eat anything for the day before, the day of, and I think I was still shaking the day after, just like, oh my gosh, did we get through that? Like, is it over? Is it over? It was a success. Everything went well. However, when you do these events, it always seems like nothing is going well.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like everything is wrong. There's always an issue, and there usually always is, but it's always a bigger issue to you than it is to the actual event. So, people on from the outside looking in, they don't know that something's wrong. They don't know that this is the wrong color. They don't know that that's the wrong song play. This is the wrong appetizer being served. They just see the vibes and the event as a whole. So it went as a success, but I was just an absolute wreck the entire time, like just so nervous and sweating and just, I mean, but it went great. It went great. So I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do
Mm-hmm.
this.
What's the best event? As a journalist and as a publicist, you get to see a lot of sporting events. What's the best sporting event that you've been to?
So I'm gonna say I love the Super Bowl because the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl like 3 out of the last like 4 years. So that's really cool because my uncle is actually does team security for the Chiefs, and he's in charge of the trophies when they win the trophies. So he's actually the first person that gets the trophy at like the AFC Championship or the Super Bowl, and then takes it around. And then, like, if the guys are holding it, he has to stand right there. So being able to experience like these big games, like the Super Bowls and stuff with him, and being able to have some little inside access to the trophy and things like that has been absolutely like the best. Being able to do that with family, there's nothing better.
Mm-hmm. So the next one's kind of a two-part question, and you already talked about a little bit of the future and what you would love to see happen with your business. But what's a goal of yours, that the first goal that you checked off, that truly meant something, and what's the next goal on your list that you would like to check off?
Thinking about for my business.
Yeah, or maybe even for you.
Uh, okay, well, for me, I would say having the business was the first goal that I checked off.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last goal that I would want to check off is just seeing it continue on and continue to grow, and continue to be something that represents something good, and something genuine and something that makes a difference.
So the last question that I have for you is, what's a piece of advice that somebody told you, or something that has come up throughout your career that always really sticks with you?
So it's not necessarily something that anyone's told me, but just advice that I would give, or advice that I even tell myself. Stay the course and be intentional and be genuine. Um, And whatever you do, do not lose faith in God while you're on the course. Because when I tell you, he knows what he's doing. He knows why you get into certain rooms. He knows why he puts certain people in front of you. And it may not be, it may not be something that you see right away, but I promise you it's something that you'll see later. And I've learned that over and over and over in this business. So yeah, stay the course, be intentional, be genuine, and don't lose faith in God.
Yeah, that's amazing. Those are great. That's a great way to end it, right? I love the advice. But before we do end, I kind of want you to plug your business a little bit, tell people what the name is, where they can find it, where they can find you. So the floor is yours.
Sure, thanks. So yeah, at AM Elite PR, we are a professional sports and entertainment agency, public relations agency. You can find me on Instagram at I am April Monét. And you can find the agency Instagram at AM Elite PR. All my contact information is on there. Feel free to hit me up anytime. Like I said, I love to do anything philanthropic. Love to do the camps, love to do charity events. We do all media relations, crisis management, you name it, for sports and entertainment. So there you have it.
That's awesome. Well, April, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you coming on the show, sharing your story, sharing your triumphs and some of the tough parts of your career. We'll certainly be looking to see how much more growth you put into your company. As I said, I really appreciate you coming on. Before we let you go, do you have anything else that you want to leave us with?
No, I think that's it. Go Chiefs, see for the new dynasty.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Athletes to Athletes podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. To engage with everything the A2A platform has to offer, go to the App Store and search Athletes to Athletes to download our new app. You can check out our educational material and you'll ensure that you don't miss when a new episode of the A2A podcast drops. Again, thank you for listening. We'll see you again next time.